Hello and welcome to the inaugural Croydon Constitutionalists podcast, bringing classical liberalism to South London. I'm your co-host for today. My name's Dan Heaton and my colleague and associate here is Mike Swadling. Hi Mike, how are you doing?
Hello Dan, yeah, good, thank you.
For those of you that don't know me, perhaps you're not from the Croydon area. My name's Dan Heaton, I'm in my early 40s and I work in the city in the insurance industry. I've been down in Croydon for the last 13 years. Basically, I came down here for work. And that's why my accent is not a local one. I'm from a place called St Helens, which for those of you perhaps from a different part of the world, is in the northwest of England. Basically, it's right in between Liverpool and Manchester. I've long had an interest in economics, history and politics, but ended up studying law at university. And I have, I'm afraid, a master's degree in the subject. I first became actively involved in politics when I was a student with the Conservative Party and then later with the Freedom Association. But eventually I fell out of love with the Conservative Party, particularly over the European Union, which is something that I've opposed since I was a teenager in the 1990s. Eventually I found my way to joining UKIP in 2011 and I've been involved with the local group ever since. I've stood twice for council, unsuccessfully, but I did head up the Victorious Vote Leave campaign in Croydon Central in the famous Brexit referendum of June 2016. Before then, I then became a co-founder of the Croydon Constitutionalists in the summer of 2018. And I have my co-founder of that group with me today. Mike, for the benefit of our listeners, could you just say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks Dan. So Mike Swadling, I won't give away my age, but I've lived in Croydon all my life, all 45 years, and all parts of the borough, grew up here. Politically, I've stood in 1987 in a school election for the Conservatives, didn't do very well. I've twice been a member of the party, but eventually joined UKIP in 2014. Similarly to Dan, my claim to fame was being the Vote Leave borough manager for the referendum, but also for Leave.eu and Grassroots Out. So we had a combined campaign across all the different groups. Professionally, I work in IT, tended to work for banking and insurance companies and self-employed and work all around the area. And in terms of the local community, I've been involved in a number of things over the years. Most recently, I've been a governor at a few schools in Croydon. And it's key to kind of being part of somewhere I've lived and been all my life. Like Dan, I've also ran for office 3 times in the general election in 2017 in Croydon North, in a by-election in South Norwood, and most recently in the council elections in New Addington. Given that I don't have a professional title, you can tell, unfortunately, all of those were unsuccessful. But a key point about running for election, it's all about getting your point of view out there and getting your voice heard, and it was great to do that.
Indeed, and that's what we're all about here. We're all about exchanging views and promoting democracy. So, Mike, we've recently set up this Croydon Constitutionalist group, and that's what we're here to talk about here today on our podcast. What's it all about?
Well, that's a great question, and sometimes we always wonder. I remember us having conversations probably towards the back end of last year about wanting to use the enthusiasm and the skills that we'd learnt in the referendum and talk about a broader set of classically liberal ideas, a set of ideas promoting freedom, free choice, free speech, and trying to bring that together and carry on the good work we've done in Brexit. And also not be party political. These ideas don't need to be partisan. They should be critical, true to Britain. And we started that conversation. We started turning around different ideas, turning up different names. I think you came up with this name, and so any concerns on that, and speak to Dan. But we came up with different names, different ideas, and really wanted to set up a group, a vehicle that we could use to promote events in and around the area, promoting what we believe in and what are not just classically liberal, but classically British ideals.
Indeed, indeed. And yes, for anybody who doesn't like the name, I'm afraid I did come up with it. But it is at least alliterative. So, yes, it's my fault. Okay, so you've mentioned Brexit there, Mike. Obviously, we worked together on the Brexit campaign. But we're also interested in low taxes. Do you have any particular views at the moment on the current state of taxation in Croydon?
Current state of taxation in Croydon. Well, I think the current state of taxation in Britain is they're at a 40-year high, I believe, the Taxpayers Alliance say. I'm anyone that knows me will know I like to bang on about the Laffer curve and the fact that high tax rates do not equal high tax takes. High increasing levels of taxing of people disincentivise economic activity and stop people being economically productive, therefore actually lower the amount of tax take, the amount of money for public services. In Croydon specifically, we've seen council tax go up by basically the maximum amount the past couple of years. We've got a council that doesn't feel like it's going to stop doing that anytime soon. And that's more of your money going to them, less of it going to you. That's less of your money in the local high street. That's less of your money on local firms and builders and plumbers and whatever else you might be spending money on around here. And instead it's going to council services. Now, is that a good thing? Is it actually helping the people of Croydon?
Well, Mike, you say this money, this extortion which is occurring at the moment in terms of the raising of the council tax by such a high level. Yeah, okay, some of it might be being spent on public services, but I believe that the expenses for the local councillors does seem to be rather high, even by the standards of other London councils. I believe it may even be the highest in London these days. Backbenchers gave themselves a pay rise, and I believe that the frontbenchers gave themselves an even bigger pay rise. So, it's one rule for them, one rule for everybody else by the look of things. But yeah, as you say, the overall tax take in this country is extraordinary, and it really should be reduced. And that's why I know we've been working recently with the Taxpayers Alliance to raise those issues with people, because sometimes people, they may see how much money is taken out of their salary each month in terms of income tax, but perhaps they're not aware of the money that's being taken, not just in things like council tax, but stealth taxes. Just the extent of what you're paying on any sort of petrol, insurance, premium tax, as something that I know is close to Mike's heart, the tax that's on beer. So I know we've been working with the Taxpayers Alliance. We recently had a meeting and ran a street stall. Mike, would you like to talk a little bit about the meeting we had with them? Yeah,
the meeting with the Taxpayers Alliance. So we got Harry Fondown from the Taxpayers Alliance, grassroots campaign manager, came down and spoke to us in Purley. Good turnout for a subject that we didn't know what we do. We hadn't run a meeting on taxes before, and talking about really what the work the TPA do, and the areas that they see unnecessary government expense and waste. And we spent an awful lot of time talking about HS2, as apparently often these meetings come on to talk to. This is a project that seems increasingly to cost more than the Second World War to deliver slightly faster trains to Birmingham. Not terribly convinced this is great value for money. We also spoke about some of the spending in the local council. So what Dan had mentioned there, anyone that crosses the border into Sutton or to Bromley, it's not immediately obvious to me that our councillors should be paid more than the councillors of the clean streets of Sutton or the clean streets of Bromley. But they are, and they chose to be. So we could talk about some of those things in a local area and then talk about the national issues that they're involved in. So if anyone wants to go to their... Dan touched upon my enjoyment or concern for the beer tax. Anyone that wants to go to their local, they may well find it closed. Well, that's because we have one of the highest rates of tax on alcohol in Europe. That's really impinging our local pubs, which are a key part of our local communities. they drive so much activity on a local high street. And it's all about bringing those things together and having a chance to talk about it with them. Dan, what did you think of the evening?
I thought, as you say, it was reasonably well attended for a sunny summer evening in Purley. I think Harry was extremely eloquent and spoke very well and was able to answer any of the questions that the attendees had. Obviously, we had the meeting there, and then following on from that, we had a street stall in central Croydon, which was very well received. There is a video available on YouTube and indeed on our website, which we'll discuss later, which is Harry discussing those conversations that he's had with the people of central Croydon on that day. We've already arranged quite a few events so far, haven't we? So we've touched on the events with the Taxpayers Alliance. We also held a Leavers of London event a couple of weeks earlier than that at the Green Dragon pub in central Croydon, and we had a little bit of a rather famous person there and her famous bag. Can you please reveal all, Mr. Swadling?
So yes, anyone watching the BBC or Sky will increasingly see, and LBC recently, Lucy Harris, the young lady who set up the Leavers of London group, and she was there in the evening and came down, and also with Hugh Bennett, the Brexit Central editor, and now moved to Guildo Fawkes, I believe.
He certainly moved on, yeah.
Lucy recently hit national headlines where she was, accosted by I was about to say a gentleman. He certainly wasn't that, by Ramona so and so on the train, because she had the EU is not my bag. A gentleman decided to have a go at her on the morning rush hour, because I made the mistake of calling him that, a gentleman there, because she was carrying this bag, and abused her in the way that's all too typical, the way Brexiteers are called racist and thick and so on. This genius lawyer, it turns out, Lucy managed to get a photo of him and his name. He sort of threatened that she would get into trouble for this, the lady that set up the Leavers of London group, and got an article in The Spectator and certainly The Express, among other papers, from it.
Yeah, in fact, it's made her somewhat famous. I mean, I think she was on TV just the other day, having a little tete-a-tete with Mr. Chuka Umunna, if I recall correctly, and you won't be surprised to know that she bested him quite easily. So we had that Leavers of London drinks. It was a nice social event, but previous to that, our sort of first event towards the end of May, we had a Brexit meeting in Clyde Hall in Addiscombe with the Member of Parliament for Croydon South, Mr. Chris Philp, and the UKIP Assembly Member for London, David Curtin, which was they both gave a speech, and there were questions and answers, and that was pretty well attended as well. How do you feel that went, Mike?
Well, it was great to get one of our local MPs out and talking about leaving the EU. Chris was a Remainer in the referendum, but it was key for us to get him there talking about the positive benefits of leaving the EU, because we've had the referendum, it's got to be delivered, we've got to get out, and it, getting someone who's actually in power, of influence, to talk about that was critical. Now, subsequent to that, we've had the betrayal of Chequers, and Chris at the moment is backing that. But I'm sure we all hope that he will see the light and realise that delivering the vote of the people will be key to his continued career prospects. But Chris was good speech, and David Curtin, London Assembly member, not always perhaps as well known, but always a good turn, a really cheerful speaker, a really upbeat speech, and I thought we had a great Q&A talking back and forth with many of the crowd there as well, Dan.
Yes, he had some interesting question and answer session, I think, with a chap who disagreed with his views on climate change. Basically, David, who is a chemistry teacher, I believe, if I recall correctly, he does not believe that it is man-made, or that it's having any particular impact on the climate. So that was an interesting debate with the chap. The chap was obviously very much in favour of Brexit, but just happened to disagree with him on that, and that's fine, because that's what we're all about here at the Croydon Constitutionalists. We're all about debate and democracy and not shutting down debate. So, for example, David, who we've just talked about there, around about that time, he'd been selected to be the UKIP parliamentary candidate for the by-election in Lewisham. And there was a hustings held in the area, and lots of the candidates turned up, except for the Labour Party candidate. Now, for those of you that don't know the area, the Labour Party candidate was going to win. The Labour Party candidate did not turn up, but what did turn up was basically a load of Antifa thugs who effectively tried to stop the event from even starting, and eventually the event had to be cancelled not that long in, simply because they were rioting outside. Footage of this is available on YouTube, and indeed it was in some of the local press. And that's the sort of thing that we need to really stamp out in this country. Not just simply because it's that's left wing and people are right wing or centrist or what have you, just because they're attempting to stifle debate. That the would-be member of Parliament simply refused to debate with anybody else, didn't turn up, and these people were not going to allow anybody else to have their say whatsoever. And this is what we're on about. We need to have debates, discussions. And that's that's the British way, and that's the way to do things in a constitutional democracy, not the sort of things that we're seeing sometimes with Mr. Corbyn's friends with Momentum and such like.
Just on that with the debates, those debates, in fact, videos from that evening are available on our website. So if you did miss it, it's something you can always come along and have a watch of.
And what's the address for that website, Mike?
It's croydonconstitutionalists.uk.
Excellent. So, yes, we're all, we've got a website, and I believe we're also on the Twitter, as they say.
We are on the Twitter and we are on the Facebook. So, on the Twitter, we are Croydon Const. That's Croydon, Const. Or you could search for us on Croydon Constitutionalists. And on Facebook, we are Facebook under Croydon Constitutionalists. Also, if you want to email us at any time, croydonconstitutionalists@gmail.com.
Thank you, Mr. Social Media. Excellent. So you know how to contact us now. If you go on the website, you can sign up to get updates for our future events. We've got some ideas in mind. Mike, what have we got planned for the next few months potentially?
Well, the first thing I'm just going to mention is we really are, and we've mentioned a few different parties there, a cross-party organisation. We are about ideas, not just about any particular partisan model. So we would welcome anyone from any kind of political background that believes in classically liberal ideas and believes in pushing the agenda of a full and clean Brexit. So to that end, Brexit's back in the news. We've got, at the end of March next year, we leave the EU.
Hopefully,
we better. And in October-ish time, we think the deal will be agreed, won't be agreed with the EU. More votes will come before Parliament. To that end, we're planning a street stall in Croydon in October. Have a look at the website soon for more details. We're just finalising some of those. And we're hoping to hold another Brexit meeting, this time in the north of the borough. So we're looking at Norbury, but again, it's all about confirming bookings and surprisingly hard to book a venue. I was amazed when I first started doing this. So October, a street stall and a Brexit meeting somewhere in the north of Croydon. 40% of Croydon North voted to leave the EU. We want to make sure the people up there are back on board and working hard to secure that end. We're also this year looking to hold some sort of non-Brexit event in Sutton. And again, once we've got more details, we'll publish them out to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Social Advisor. That's all for today's podcast, but we know how to get in touch with us, and if you sign up via the website and the social media, you'll be able to know about future events. Please do get involved. As Mike says, it's not about UKIP or Conservatives or Liberals or Labour or anything like that. You don't have to be a member of a political party or an ex-member of a political party. Just get involved. It's all about Croydon. It's all about constitutional democracy in Croydon and this country, and indeed beyond. And if anybody from any other part of the country or indeed worldwide wants to tweet us, that would be brilliant. So until next time, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye.